Remember that stack of articles you sent over about the Nobel Prize in chemistry? Well, get this. It's not just about some abstract science. It's literally changing how we understand and interact with life itself. Let's dive in.
It's true. This year's prize recognizes not one, but two incredible breakthroughs in the world of proteins. We're talking about predicting their structures with unbelievable accuracy and designing brand new proteins from scratch.
Okay, hold on. Back up a bit. I remember proteins from biology class, vaguely. They're the tiny machines that power everything in our cells, right? But how on earth do you even begin to predict or design something so small and complex?
Well, you're right. Proteins are mind-bogglingly intricate. Imagine a tangled mess of headphone cords stuffed in your pocket. That's a decent analogy for the structure we're dealing with. And for the longest time, that complexity was a huge roadblock for scientists.
So what changed? Why is this the year everyone's going bonkers over proteins?
For decades, researchers struggled to predict how a chain of amino acids, those building blocks of proteins, would actually fold into that 3D shape. It was like trying to solve a million-piece jigsaw puzzle blindfolded.
That sounds impossible.
It practically was. We knew that a protein structure dictates its function, meaning if we could crack the code of protein folding, it would open doors to solving all sorts of problems, from curing diseases to cleaning up pollution.
Okay, so huge GE stakes. But we were stuck in a scientific rut. Where did the breakthrough come from?
This is where it gets really interesting. Have you heard of Demis Hassabis, the mind behind the AI that mastered the ancient game of Go?
Vaguely. I'm more of a Wordle person myself.
Well, Hassabis turned his attention to proteins, and his team at DeepMind developed something called AlphaFold. It uses a revolutionary AI approach called deep learning.
Deep learning, so like showing a computer a gazillion pictures of cats and dogs until it learns the difference, except with proteins and their structures.
You're on the right track. But AlphaFold doesn't just memorize existing shapes, it's trained on a massive database of protein information, allowing it to learn the fundamental principles behind how amino acids interact and form those intricate 3D structures.
So it's not just pattern recognition, it's like AlphaFold understands the actual language of protein folding.
Exactly. And this leads us to the real bombshell AlphaFold 2, the upgraded version. It uses a revolutionary neural network architecture that achieves accuracy in predicting protein structures comparable to experimental methods.
Hold up. Comparable to traditional lab work. How's that even possible?
It was a seismic shift for the scientific community. Almost overnight, we went from painfully slow progress to having a tool that could potentially predict the structure of nearly every protein on Earth. It was like someone handed us a cheat sheet for the entire protein universe.
Okay, this is huge EE. We've got an AI that can basically map out any protein we throw at it. But wait, there was another part to the Nobel Prize, right?
Yeah.
Something about building proteins from scratch.
You're right. And that's where our other Nobel laureate, David Baker, enters the scene. While many were focused on predicting existing structures, Baker was already hard at work building brand new proteins, like a molecular architect.
Building proteins from scratch. That sounds like something out of a science fiction movie.
It might sound like science fiction, but it's very much a reality. And it's thanks to a software program Baker developed called Rosetta.
Okay, I'm all ears. Tell me more about this Rosetta and what makes it so special.
Imagine this. If AlphaFold is like having a universal translator for protein structures, Rosetta is the language we use to write our own.
So instead of just analyzing proteins that already exist, Baker's software allows us to create entirely new ones with tailor-made functions. Now that is seriously mind-blowing. Tell me more about what Baker has actually achieved.
One of Baker's most groundbreaking creations is a protein called Top7, a 93 amino acid sequence that folds into a structure never before seen in nature.
Wait, so it's like discovering a brand new color in the spectrum of possible protein structures.
You got it. Top7 was a defining moment. It proved that de novo protein design wasn't limited to mimicking what nature had already created. We could build proteins with completely new architectures, opening up a world of possibilities for custom-designed functions.
Okay, I am officially blown away. This is incredible. But how does this translate to the real world? What can you actually do with a protein like Top7?
That's where it gets really exciting. Think about it. We could potentially design proteins to target specific diseases, break down pollutants like plastic, even create entirely new material.
Hold on, we're going to need a whole other episode to unpack that. But before we get ahead of ourselves, let's get back to the science. How does Rosetta even work? It's not like Baker is down there arranging atoms by hand, right?
You're right. It's far more elegant than that. Rosetta uses a clever combination of physics-based modeling and algorithms to predict how different amino acid sequences will fold. It's almost like a video game where you try different combinations until you find the most stable and functional protein structure.
That's incredible. It sounds like we're talking about a whole new era of protein science.
We are, and the implications are huge. Think about it. With AlphaFold, we have access to a rapidly growing database of predicted protein structures. And with Rosetta, we can design completely novel proteins with specific functions in mind.
This is like having a superpower. It's like opening up the hood of life itself and tinkering with the engine.
That's a great analogy. And this tinkering is already leading to some incredible advances in medicine, materials science, and our understanding of biology as a whole.
All right. I need a minute to process all of this. This is seriously some next-level science. We've covered a lot of ground already. But I'm dying to hear more about the real-world implications of these breakthroughs.
Absolutely, and we will get to that. But first, let's dive into some specific examples of how AlphaFold and Rosetta are being used right now to revolutionize various fields. Because believe it or not, it gets even more exciting from here.
All right, so last time we left off with our minds blown wide open by the world of protein design and prediction. It still feels like something out of Star Trek. But you mentioned these tools are already being used in some amazing ways.
Oh, absolutely. And the applications are incredibly diverse, which is what makes this whole field so exciting.
Okay, so hit me with some real-world examples. What's got you most fired up?
Well, let's start with David Baker, the protein architect himself. Remember Top 7? That groundbreaking protein with a never-before-seen structure?
How could I forget? It's like the celebrity of the protein world now.
Right. Well, Baker and his team didn't stop there. They've gone on to design proteins that can detect fentanyl with incredible sensitivity.
Wow, that's huge. Talk about a real-world impact. With the opioid crisis we're facing, having a tool like that could be a game changer.
Absolutely. And that's just one example. They've also created protein nanoparticles that mimic viruses, paving the way for new types of vaccines that are safer and more effective.
Wait, explain that a little more. How can proteins be used to fight viruses?
Essentially, they're designing these proteins to mimic the outer shell of a virus, triggering your immune system to create antibodies without you ever getting sick. It's like giving your body a sneak peek at the enemy's battle plans.
That is seriously cool. Okay, so Baker is clearly on a roll. What else is coming out of his lab?
They're even building self-assembling protein cages, which sounds super sci-fi, but it's actually brilliant. These microscopic cages can be designed to deliver drugs with incredible precision, right to where they're needed in the body.
So less side effects.
Yeah.
Faster treatment. That could revolutionize medicine as we know it. Okay, Baker's work is mind-blowing. But what about AlphaFold? We can't forget about our protein-predicting AI superstar.
Of course not. AlphaFold has been making waves in the research world. Remember how we talked about how difficult and time-consuming it used to be to determine a protein's structure?
Yeah, it sounded like a real bottleneck for scientific progress.
Exactly. But with AlphaFold, researchers now have access to a rapidly growing database of predicted protein structures. Essentially, a treasure map to understanding diseases, discovering new drugs, and engineering solutions to a whole range of global challenges.
Okay, break it down for me. Let's say I'm a scientist studying a protein linked to Alzheimer's disease. How does AlphaFold help me in my research?
Well, in the past, you might have spent years trying to figure out that protein structure, using expensive and time-consuming experimental methods. But with AlphaFold, you can get a highly accurate prediction in a matter of days, sometimes even hours.
Talk about a time saver. So instead of spending years on step one, researchers can jump right into testing potential treatments. That's huge.
Exactly. It's like fast-forwarding through years of research and development, which has massive implications for finding cures and treatments for diseases like Alzheimer's, cancer, and countless others.
Wow, this is incredible. It sounds like we're on the cusp of a golden age of medical discovery, thanks to these protein-powered tools.
But you mentioned other applications, like tackling global challenges. What did you mean by that?
Well, let's take plastic pollution, for instance. It's a massive environmental problem.
An understatement.
Right. But researchers are already using Rosetta to design enzymes. Those are proteins that speed up chemical reactions that can break down plastic at a molecular level.
So instead of those massive garbage patches in the ocean, we could have proteins literally eating away at the problem. That would be incredible.
Exactly. And it's not just about cleaning up our mess. This technology could also help us develop bio-based, biodegradable materials made from proteins. Imagine a world with plastic-like materials that simply decompose back into the environment, leaving no trace.
Okay, I'm officially ready to move into this protein-powered future.
And that's not even scratching the surface. This is just the tip of the iceberg. All right, you win. My mind is officially blown. What's really hitting home for me is how this impacts everyone, not just scientists in a lab.
That's exactly right. These breakthroughs have the potential to touch all of our lives in profound ways, whether it's through medical breakthroughs, environmental solutions, or even advances in things like food production and renewable energy.
It's like this one scientific field, protein science, is suddenly poised to solve some of the biggest challenges facing humanity. It's almost hard to wrap your head around it. But okay, before we get ahead of ourselves and start planning the protein-powered utopia, I have to ask, are there any downsides to all of this? I mean, it can't all be smooth sailing, right?
That's a great question, and it's an important one to consider with any new technology, especially one this powerful. There are always ethical and societal implications to consider, but that's a conversation for another time, perhaps.
You got it. I sense another deep dive coming on, for now. Let's stick with the good stuff, the mind-blowing potential of protein. Okay, I'm still reeling from all this talk about protein power. It's like we've stumbled onto the secret code of life itself. But I know what some of our listeners might be thinking. How does this impact us regular folks who don't spend our days in a lab?
That's the amazing part. This isn't just about scientists tinkering in labs. It's about real-world solutions that could impact every aspect of our lives.
Give me the good stuff. What kind of future are we talking about here?
Well, imagine a world with personalized medicine tailored to your unique genetic makeup. We could see a future where diseases like Alzheimer's and cancer are no longer a death sentence, but manageable conditions.
So, no more one-size-fits-all medicine? Sign me up. What else?
Picture this. You're biting into a juicy burger, but it's not beef. It's plant-based protein, so convincing you'd swear it came from a cow. This technology has huge implications for food security and could revolutionize how we feed a growing population sustainably.
Okay, now that's a future I can get behind. But what about those big, hairy global challenges we keep bumping up against? Can proteins really make a dent in things like climate change?
They absolutely can. Researchers are already working on engineering crops that are more resistant to drought and disease. This means less water usage, fewer pesticides, and ultimately a lighter footprint on our planet.
That's incredible. It's like we're talking about a future where we can literally grow our way out of environmental disaster.
And let's not forget about renewable energy. Protein-based solar cells are already being developed that are more efficient and less expensive to produce than traditional silicon-based cells.
Hold on. We could power our homes with protein-powered solar panels. That's wild.
It might sound crazy, but it's the kind of innovation we're talking about. And this is just the beginning. The possibilities with protein science are truly limitless.
I can't wait to see what the future holds. So as we wrap up this incredible deep dive into the world of protein design and prediction, what's the one key takeaway you want our listeners to remember?
The future is protein. This field is moving at an unprecedented pace, and the breakthroughs we're seeing today are just a glimpse of what's possible. Keep an eye on this space because it's going to change the world as we know it.
So much for boring old biology class, huh? Proteins are officially the coolest kids on the scientific block. And with that, we come to the end of another mind-blowing deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and never stop being curious about the world around you.